Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have a lifetime Florida State Seminole fan, that's me, Brandon, and a lifetime Florida Gator fan, that's my co-host, Chris. And we're putting aside our differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today we will give you a bowl recap for the 2018-2019 season for the Florida teams. We'll preview an upcoming guest that we have coming up soon. We'll give you an update on how you can reach out to us. And we have a special message from a fan to Brandon. So given all today's content, now the season's over, Chris, how you feel about today's show?
Good, but sad at the same time because it's over. You're going to have your recruiting and spring games and whatnot, but it was bittersweet to see the bowl season come to an end, but it was fun watching it and watching it unfold.
Yes, and we previewed what these bowls would look like. I feel like they were all very exciting and well put together. So I look forward also to the horizon. Given that we had a 5-7 year in Tallahassee, you really have to look forward instead of having to look back.
Yeah. You want to forget looking back, forget what was behind you real quick.
Exactly. On the same token, I'm not going to shy away from it. It just was a bad season for us. But anyway, I don't want to be that fan that's just, we have next year because, everybody has next year. That's
right.
True for anyone. Anyway, so there were 5 bowl games that we'll talk about. There was the Florida-Michigan bowl game, which is the Peach Bowl. We'll start off with that one, actually. Let me know what your thoughts were on how that game went, Chris, in Atlanta, and how the Gators went to victory against the Wolverines.
Oh, man, just so happy about this game, the outcome, how we played, how we finished the season, going into next season, program-wise, just a great all-around game for the Gators. And I know that Michigan didn't have some players playing, and you could question whether the ones that were there, how hard they were playing, how much they wanted to play. I understand all that, but as far as the Gators go, they can only play who steps on the field. They can't control that. And they stepped up. They played hard, played a really good game, and really just kind of blew them out towards the end there. And I'm really impressed by the Gators. The defense holding them to 15 points, offense scoring 41. The one dark spot really, the special teams with those block punts and stuff. But really, overall though, really excited about the way that we played. Really impressed with Franks, the way he, especially the second half of the season, has been coming along. You got to be smiling. If you're a Gator fan, you have to be smiling about this game, and especially the way the seniors finished strong. And like I said before, what a huge springboard going into next season.
You bet. And this was a hard game to watch as a Nole fan because this wasn't really any contest. It was kind of close in the first quarter, but The Gators really outplayed Michigan pretty much every step of the way. And I'm glad you didn't say or too much about Michigan, quote, not being as motivated, because I don't think that's a fair excuse. I mean, the Gators were just better. And there were a lot of times when teams have that, but when you say something like that, it takes away the victory from the team that won if somebody buys into it. Yeah. And I don't think that was the case. The Gators were just clearly better, and you know what? At the end of the day, it's the coach's job to motivate guys. Starters or not, guys sitting out, guys injured, whatever. So Harbaugh just didn't have his guys ready. And you called this. I was completely wrong. I really thought Michigan would win a low-scoring game by 1, and that was certainly not the case.
It was, we were, the first half really is anybody's ball game at halftime, Although I think if you watch the game, we were clearly outplaying them. They were within striking distance, but it was early in the third when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson picked off, is it Patterson?
Shea Patterson,
yeah. I want to say Peterson for some reason. I don't know. He picked off Patterson, and really after that, on the goal line, after that, it was just kind of over. We just really dominated in the second half, holding them to 5 points. So really good to see. And big explosive plays too. Franks had a touchdown run earlier. P. Ryan had that run, and then nice to see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with that pick six to seal it. So real nice way to end the season for the Gators.
Yes, balanced rushing attack for Florida just like all season long. And P. Ryan actually caught a touchdown too.
Uh-huh.
So, you mentioned the 2 punt blocks by Michigan. That was the most impressive part of the game to me. That was the same guy, it turns out. I can't even remember his name, but good hustle there. And, it didn't matter because that was negated by the 2 interceptions. And Michigan decided not to run the ball, and they passed the entire night, which was kind of a weird choice. But maybe with the personnel, they were kind of thinking to catch off guard. I wouldn't have chosen to do that against an SEC defense like the Gators, but that was the plan they went with. It didn't pay off.
Yeah, and like you said, P. Ryan, I'm really excited. I know Scarlett's leaving. Really excited for him next year, and you could see that obviously he has that breakaway ability. He did that with the Noles. He did that here with Michigan, but also he can catch the ball too. Get him some screens and stuff. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do next year. And in Franks, I can't say enough about how well he's played and how well Mullen is using him, especially his legs. He is a very talented runner. I know he doesn't really want to, but he is really talented with his legs. Mullins can use quarterbacks to get them out of the pocket or to use draws, and really has done a good job of all his quarterbacks at running the ball, which helps in the passing game and gets them some confidence too. And he has found a way to get Franks confident, which is really cool to see.
Yes, I mean, since that Missouri loss and going into the week after that, you think, okay, maybe Franks is not the guy and you should sit him on the bench. And Kyle Trask gets injured, and then the rest is history. They roll off a lot of impressive wins to end the season. And, hey, we'll talk about recruiting next time, but that would have been my pitch saying, hey, look, Florida rolled into the end of the year like this, and Georgia lost their last 2 games. So what school would you rather go to?
Nice.
So
nice.
Anyway, yes, it was still a very good win, 41-15. That was pretty much a beatdown, kind of.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just nice to go into a quality bowl and just play a good team and just beat them. It's just a really good feeling. It really is.
Yes, and I mean, Florida's schedule was tough the entire year. You played essentially 3 teams in Michigan, LSU, and Georgia that could have made the playoff, and were probably that good or that close, and you beat 2 out of 3 of those. So, quality win. All right. Any last thoughts on the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl?
No, I'm just smiling from ear to ear, as all Gator fans should be.
Yep, I can hear it, and hopefully Florida State has something to do about that next year.
Yeah,
I doubt it. Yep. So that's the second year in a row that a Florida team has won the Peach Bowl. How about that?
That's right.
UCF won the year before.
That's right. I forgot about that.
All right. Well, continuing on, we'll go over to the South Florida Bulls at Tampa. They played Marshall in the Bad Boy Morris Gasparilla Bowl, and if you want to go back and listen to our bowl name episode, you can see how much fun we made out of that name. But just as we both expected, South Florida did not show up. They trailed 21-7 late in the first quarter. They were held scoreless in the fourth. They gave up 503 yards, and they only had the ball for 24 minutes. So they actually ended up losing this game to Marshall at home in the rain. How fitting. 38-20. So a few things stood out to me. By the way, I called this score within 1 point. I was impressed with myself.
Okay.
I went back and listened to the episode and looked at notes, and I had said 38-21.
Okay.
How about that?
Bulls letting you down.
Yes. Well, they could have gotten 1 more point. Oh, anyway.
All right.
This was just a really rough season for the South Florida Bulls, and as far as I can tell, Chris, and if anyone wants to look this up and find out this is not true, I would welcome that feedback. I think this is the first team ever to start 7-0 and finish 7-6.
Cool.
And the hard thing about this is you have no momentum going into next season. You haven't won a game in over 2 months, but that was some of my initial thoughts. What were your thoughts on the bowl season and how the bowl game ended?
Yeah, that's like you said. what a fitting way to end at home in the rain, getting blown out. Like that is South Florida. Well, at least their second half of the season. That encapsulates it real well. Yeah, one stat you were pointing out some stats. They got out rushed 282 to 92.
Wow,
that's insane. Yeah, just what is Charlie Strong doing? I don't know. I don't know what you do. Like, where do you go from there? Like, what do you do? How do you sell the program? How do you? I don't know. I don't know what to do. And another thing, 4 for 15 and third downs. You're not going to do much doing that.
Yeah.
You're not going to do much, no matter where you're at doing that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You don't get Cronkite involved. His numbers were pretty low. He only had 26 rushing yards, and Ford outrushes him with 50. The only high spot of the game was the wide receiver St. Felix at 165 yards and 6 catches.
Impressive.
That's very good, but that's all they had.
Right.
And it was a very hard game to watch.
Yeah. At home.
And it wasn't even like, oh, it's the Tampa Bay area. It's actually at the Bucs Stadium where you play your home games, and your logo is probably still painted on the field, kind of deal.
Yeah. Embarrassing to say the least.
Right. So, the Bulls end on a very sour note, and we'll talk more about recruiting in our next episode, but, it actually kind of translated into how bad their recruiting went, too. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, that was depressing. Let's move on. Didn't represent the state well on that one.
No.
The team that did, though, other than the Florida Gators, were the FIU Panthers.
Yep. Yeah, this was a fun game.
Yeah, it was. And, again, I had this as low scoring, but I was happy to see that it went the other way. Just some of my initial thoughts on the Bahamas Bowl. They do beat Toledo 35-32. They didn't have James Morgan for this game. He was out with an arm injury. And then we talked a little bit about Shondarius Phillips, the running back, who had some legal issues. He didn't play either. The Panthers went down pretty quickly. They were down 10-0 in the first quarter, and they just started rolling after that. Mm-hmm. They continued to pretty much have their way on offense and control the line of scrimmage. And, they were up 28-17 late in the fourth quarter and never really gave up the lead after that. So, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was surprised that they went down early. I didn't think this was going to be close, and towards the end it wasn't. But yeah, I was very surprised that they came out flat, especially it's so close to home for them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they've been doing this all year, playing well. Really good for them that they finished strong. And then towards the end there, they were kind of reeling a little bit. Yeah, but 459 total yards. It's pretty good. And talk about balance. 223 passing, 236 rushing. That's really good. That's what you want. That's what you want to aim for. Mid 200s for both. Mm-hmm. That's really good.
Yes. And it was one of those games that had an awkward ending where the FIU's up by 10, and what looked like the last play of the game, Toledo throws a deep ball, and he looked like he was out of bounds, but it ended up being a touchdown catch.
Yeah.
But the clock ran out, quote unquote, and so let's dump the Gatorade, let's go celebrate on the field. Oh, wait, hang on, let's put some time back on. There were 3 seconds, not 2, not 1. They kick an extra point, then they have to try the onside kick, and then it was all really a formality, but I was also like, hey, guys, I've seen games end very differently when this happens anyway. It's only awkward because it takes away from the thrill of that victory moment.
Yeah,
you have to redo it again, but Butch Davis is already wet and all this other stuff. So
there's been a couple games where the coach has already received the Gatorade bath and then they've lost. So yeah,
LSU had that at Texas A&M. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, yes, second bowl victory in program history. Good for them. I looked it up. Their other bowl win was against Toledo also.
Oh goodness.
And a school record 9 wins on the year. So great end of the year for the Panthers.
Yeah. Good for them.
All right. So on from the Bahamas Bowl, we'll go up to the Pinstripe Bowl, where the Miami Hurricanes faced off against Wisconsin. And I don't have a whole lot of good to say about Miami. And Miami would say they have nothing good to say about their performance in that game either.
Yeah, for real. Both teams were disappointing all year, but 35-3.
Yep.
They were. You could tell they shouldn't want to be there.
It was It was bad. Wisconsin, here's some stats that stood out to me. Wisconsin only had to attempt 11 passes because Taylor rushed for 205 yards. For those keeping track, he is probably the best running back in college football. Mm-hmm. Mostly because Wisconsin always has a great offensive line, but he also has the hardware to prove it with the Doak Walker Award.
Yeah.
The Canes passing, and they did actually end up putting in N'Kosi Perry. Between him and Malik Rozier, they went 6 of 17 for 48 yards and 4 interceptions.
Yeah. Yeah, they lost the turnover battle 5-1.
Yuck.
And especially with that's your thing is you force turnovers, but you lose the battle 5-1.
Yep. I mean, the way they tried to make up for it was Rozier actually rushed for 90 yards, but that was just dropping the bucket. There was nothing Miami could do that day, and Wisconsin just did everything they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Once the Wisconsin running game gets going for 333 yards, once that gets going, forget it.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not Georgia Tech, Navy, or Army, but they can run that much if they have to, and if they can, then you're just not getting the ball.
Yeah, and they're comfortable with doing that too. They don't force it. They don't force the passes, much like an option team.
Right.
They go, this is who we are, who we've always been, and if we're rolling, we're rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. I had this when I predicted it. I was like, 27-16, Wisconsin would win, but now it was much worse than that. So bad, in fact, you could argue this is what forced Mark Richt to retire. I don't know if that's a compilation of many things and recruiting not being successful, and he may have some personal things we don't know about. But this year went so badly toward the end. Richt decided he's just going to move on to other things. Yeah,
it might have been the thing that pushed him over the edge for sure.
Yeah. So be interesting to see what Manny Diaz brings. They've got him back from Temple. He's going to be the coach at Miami next year. And hey, Florida and Florida State both play Miami, so
yeah,
we're going to have a true State of Florida champion next season. Don't get that.
Well, I know fans of UCF will disagree, but yeah, I understand.
Well, they're going to probably win 9 or 10 games again. That's always my prediction. And they're going to be South Florida, so
yeah,
we'll get to that later on in the year.
Yeah.
So yes, Miami falls to Wisconsin 35-3 in the Pinstripe Bowl. Mm-hmm. All right. And we did have one other Florida team in a bowl game, and that was the UCF playing LSU in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yep.
I thought this was a good game. It certainly had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. UCF was only a few plays away from probably keeping this game close and or winning it, to be honest. They had a few drop passes, and they just couldn't get the ball back. LSU held time of possession like crazy. UCF ended the game with only 15 minutes and 29 seconds time of possession. I mean, they had to make an efficient drive every time they touched the ball.
Right.
They would have had to have played a perfect game. So the other things that stood out, 26 penalties between both teams. They both had 2 turnovers. LSU does win the game 40-32, and I thought it was a great game. But from your perspective, what did you think of the Fiesta Bowl?
This is exactly what I thought. Well, let me go backtrack. When UCF picked off that pick 6 early on, I was like, Are they really going to? Okay, they're going to do this again. But as the game played out, it turned out just like I thought. LSU is a different animal. I thought UCF was going to win, but I'm not too surprised because LSU is used to these games, these 4-quarter games, and UCF's opponents have been used to playing 3 quarters, or pick and choose. They're only going to play for 3 quarters.
Okay.
So they find a team that can play for 4 quarters, and you saw what the result was.
Right.
Man, LSU's passing, they almost passed for 400 yards.
Right.
That is insane. And I don't see them as a passing team. So for them to do that, I think when they knocked the quarterback out,
right,
and they got the taunting and all that stuff, I think that ticked them off. And I think that was the turning point for him. He got up, and credit to him for getting up, dusting off his shoulders, and and responding the rest of the game.
Yes, I knew as soon as that hit was made on the pick six that was going to define the game right there. I said either LSU is going to lose Burrow here and have to change their whole offensive game completely, or it's going to motivate them. And I knew it wasn't going to make no difference. I knew it would make all the difference, and we were both right.
Yeah. Once they came back and responded, I was like, okay, LSU's got this.
Right.
Yeah, but once it clear, like, oh, how's he gonna respond? What's he gonna do? And
so I thought UCF.
It was a real good game.
Yeah, UCF probably did themselves a favor by continuing to force field goals late in the second half, mostly because that's what really kept them in the game. So they end up losing by 8 because they convert a 2-point conversion, but don't get the onside kick. So there were certainly some ways UCF could have won, but if you look at this game on paper, LSU dominated everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was it actually just played out so differently on the field, really. There were some drop passes, as I mentioned a couple of times. The touchdown right before halftime was the most impressive. So impressive, Ed Orgeron broke his headset. He got very emotional. But in the end, I did pick LSU to win, and being correct. UCF's 25-game win streak does end, and they finished the season at number 11 in the country.
Still impressive. Like, even though they didn't win this game, still a whole impressive season as a whole. Sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we haven't really talked about this too much, and I guess the debate would be which ended up being the best team in Florida. I would honestly still say it was UCF. I certainly can see why people would say it's the Gators, especially the way they finished. But if they had played each other in a bowl game, which was what everyone was wanting, quote unquote, I would have probably taken the Gators just because of where they were in the season. But if they'd played each other in October, UCF would have won pretty easily.
Yeah, and that's the debate. Like, okay, who's the best team overall? You take you step back into the whole season, or like right now.
Right.
I think right now, obviously, Florida is just rolling.
Sure.
But it's tough you can't look at one loss versus 3, and you can have that whole debate. But if you want to go this route, Florida beat LSU.
Oh yeah.
Beat UCF.
That's the same math that UCF claims a national championship with in 2017.
Right.
We beat Auburn, beat Bama. Right.
There's different scenarios. So I get that, but. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
It's a good debate.
And it was.
But I think for a while though there wasn't a debate, but now there is.
Yes, and it's all the last month of the year for the Gators how they finished.
Yep.
So, all right. Yep. So that means then the Florida teams went 2-3 in bowl games, a losing record, unfortunately. They win the Peach Bowl and they win the Bahamas Bowl. Let's take a moment of silence for the Noles who did not play in a bowl game. Okay, thank you.
Huh?
That's enough acknowledgement there. Also, Florida Atlantic, no bowl game for Kiffin. So here's to next season, all 7 teams making a bowl. How about that?
I'm gonna say no as a Gator fan, but but go ahead. I respect your wishes. No.
It's I think every school has the potential for sure. Honestly, if I were to pick a team. Miami looks really rough to make a bowl season or make a bowl next season. They play in an easy division, which is in their favor, but this year they still only got them 6 or 7 wins. So interesting nonetheless.
Just a side note. I think it's South Carolina. I want to say, and Georgia. Have you seen their schedules? They have.
No, I haven't checked on them yet.
South Carolina. They play Georgia, Clemson, I believe Alabama.
Oh, Lord.
But, like, Georgia plays, like, LSU, Florida. They play, or is it Auburn? I don't know. But I'm getting off topic. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Back to the show.
Yeah, next season, and we'll certainly devote an entire episode probably to the schedules. But Florida State had
Auburn. I'm thinking
Auburn, okay.
Auburn plays, like, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Oregon, LSU, A&M. Like, their schedule is insane.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's going to impact, and they obviously playing Florida. So, you know, having to go through the rigors of something like that, that's a year, just like Florida State had this season, you could have a really good team, but you could just get dragged through the mud
Right.
by these teams. I mean, Florida State ended up playing 2 teams in the playoff this year.
Right.
Clemson and Notre Dame. So that's probably what they're going to face. Florida's probably going to face at least one that ends up in the semifinals, Yeah. And, that's the rigorous schedule that the middle school, like UCF, USF, really wants. Or they think they want.
Yeah.
Once you're in it, you're like, okay, maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. But it does make you better. It makes the program tougher, and it allows you to have a little more better recruiting pitch, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Excellent. Well, that was a really good season. We'd like for some bigger wins, but obviously we can, as a state, hang our hat on probably the Gators with their Peach Bowl victory. It's really good for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last thoughts on the bowl games or how they played out?
Yeah, I'm pleased. Overall, it was just kind of like there was no like crazy game until you got to the New Year's Six. Like this UCF and LSU game, that was a real fun game. But overall, there weren't a lot of exciting games.
This was probably
overtime thrillers or anything like that,
Well, the Cheez-It Bowl was the 10-7 final after overtime, if you want to count that one. Not thrilling, though.
No.
Real quickly, and then we'll get on to a quick recap of the semifinals and national championship game. There were actually a lot of mismatches this year in bowls. Fortunately, none of the Florida teams really faced too much of that. I mean, you could argue Wisconsin over Miami. But you saw, like, Auburn beating Purdue, and you saw Army beating Houston. Those teams scored 63 and 70 points, and they gave up 14. So you're like, man, this year this was probably one of those few random years where the bowls were not evenly matched.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, speaking of not evenly matched, what did you think of the Cotton Bowl, Clemson versus Notre Dame?
Yeah, Clemson's better. Next.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think this means Notre Dame didn't belong there. I don't think it means that at all. I do think you have to question some of their schedule, but I mean, Notre Dame had a pretty tough schedule. They had some pretty easy games too, and they had to travel a lot, but they also played one less game because they didn't play in a conference. It was just how much better Clemson was than everyone else.
Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. So I agree. Clemson much better at football, and the Orange Bowl. Oklahoma versus Alabama. You and I were kind of exchanging texts between each other on this one. What were your final thoughts on how that one played out?
Murray was impressive. The offense was impressive. It's kind of played out how I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Their offense was going to be impressive, but Bama was just better overall. But I wasn't surprised how bad Tua played though.
Okay.
In that game, but they're just a better team.
Right, and it was certainly you had to change things up a little bit when you went down so much early. If you're Oklahoma,
yeah,
and it just I think one of the things you and I were saying was like, oh, I've seen this movie before. I know how this goes. You're like, okay, Clemson, Bama again.
Right.
But they did make it an interesting game in the second half, and they started scoring a little bit, but too little, too late.
Right.
So, yep, Alabama's victorious there. So the national championship game, I know we don't really cover this too much because these aren't Florida teams, but that school in Clemson, South Carolina is going to start stealing better recruits from Florida. They're going to start recruiting Georgia and that area better, and they're going to start stealing SEC guys if they're not doing it already.
Right.
Now, Georgia's doing some really good stuff just right down the road, so that helps kind of balance it out, if you will. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what are your thoughts on what it means for Clemson to win another national title?
I picked Clemson to win. I thought they were just a better team, but I did not see a blowout coming. Mm-hmm. I did not see a complete domination coming. Trevor Lawrence is the real deal, and man, like for them to beat Bama is one thing, but them to beat Bama the way they did, that's kind of like. Everyone has to wake up and respect Clemson now. Like, okay, they've won and they're in the playoffs a lot, but really, like Bama was it. Bama was the team that people were like, oh, they can beat the Jets. They can beat a couple of You beat the Browns, right? And for someone to come in and just obliterate them in every phase, it really you have to stop and pause and go, how good is this Clemson program?
Mm-hmm.
How good is Dabo? How good is this Trevor Lawrence guy? I think he's a real deal. Obviously, I'd like to see him beef up a little bit. He's a little thin, but he's looking really good. And like you said, man, they're here. They're not just a fluke. They're here to stay.
Sure.
And with the ACC, really, who else is going to challenge them in that? Like, right. For real, challenge them. You can expect them to just be a staple in the playoffs for a long time.
I agree. There was a lot of points in that game where if it had played out differently, I think it would have been close. But Bama got down so much in the second half, they started doing desperate, dumb things again.
Yeah.
And
what? That's not Saban at all. You knew something was wrong when he did that.
Absolutely. So it was very actually toward the end unfun to watch because Clemson was up by so much.
Nah. It was fun to see Bama lose. I know I'm an SEC guy. I know I should be SEC over or whatever. But as a Florida fan, it's just tired of seeing Alabama win.
Sure.
That was a fun game. I'm not gonna lie. That was fun to watch.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I actually I was doing a lot of research during the game. I was looking at numbers. There's they're doing a lot more experimental type of broadcasting with the game like that. And so I really enjoyed the commentaries. This year they had NFL guys doing the play-by-play analysis, which to me there's a big gap between the NFL and college. And if you're not a guy that's immersed in the college game, then you have an advantage in that you can see maybe where the talent's going to lie in the next level, but you also have a disadvantage because you're not sure how the game is played or coaching tendencies and how that affects it as much. But either way, I would say, well, don't really care who wins, kind of don't want Bama to win. Why don't I just take an analytical look at this game and just see how it plays out?
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see a closer game, a fun game. But it was just nice to see not Bama win.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not a Clemson fan, but it's just not Bama.
Yeah, let's change the narrative. Let's
exactly.
Play it out differently.
Right.
Excellent. Well, any final thoughts on how this season ended or how the state of Florida fared against everyone else?
Yeah, a lot of surprises. Going into it, we talked a lot about with the new coaches, especially our schools, how it was going to play out. I did not think one team was going to win a Peach Bowl, one team was not going to go bowling at all. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Right.
And now you're going to see this with Miami. What are they going to do there with their new coach? But it was a interesting season. It's crazy that it's over. It's real crazy. I'm trying to think back of that first game. You're like, who are we? How are we going to respond? To now, like, okay, now we know who we are going forward. It was really just a real fun, interesting season, especially because there's a new coach, but for both of us to have new coaches. Yes. And now it's, all right, let's look to next year. How we're going to do in year two. Usually there's a huge jump, right?
Yes. In
progress and from year one to year two. And now there's not so much, well, it was the past coaching staff and the past coaching players. It's your team, your program. What are you going to do with that? Interested to see what Mullen does. If is the Mullen training going to continue to go? Mm-hmm. Is Taggart going to spin it around? And this is where you start doing that in recruiting in the spring. Really interesting to see what they do in the offseason and Miami as well. What they do in that transition with Diaz. But it was a fun season. Any college football is a good college football. So
right.
I'll take it.
Yep. What's the phrase? A bad day fishing is better than a day at work.
Exactly.
Yep. And Florida State's going to have to hang their hat on that and say, this kind of stuff is cyclical and it happens. Losing season was inevitable. Every streak ends. UCF's winning streak ended. Florida State's bowl streak ended.
Right.
Florida's back in the bowls. It all comes back around. So you're right. Usually you see the biggest jump between years 1 and 2. Well, Florida State is going to probably see the biggest turnaround just mathematically.
Right.
You can't get any worse. Honestly, you can't or shouldn't than 5 and 7. But it will be tougher to top it for Florida because they had so much success this year with 10 wins.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that we might be a year too early.
Okay.
I think the success should be coming this coming year, but we'll see. We'll see if we sustain it,
Right.
But I'm happy about it.
All right. Yes, it certainly gives us a little more to talk about. I mean, last season, our very, very first episode 1, if you want to go back and check out our backlog, we talked about the coaching changes and the national championship. So we've come nearly a full year, Chris. Hard to believe.
Oh, crazy.
I'm working on something special for that, by the way. So we'll tease that for the fans. I'm hoping to have that around late March. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
All right. Well, yep. No final thoughts from me. The season was a lot of fun. And there's certainly a lot to be excited about going into next season, as there always is.
Yeah.
All right. So that concludes our bowl recap. So we appreciate everyone else giving us a listen. A couple of things we have on the horizon. Chris and I talked a lot about recruiting, and we're going to let the dust settle on that just a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And we actually have a very, very special guest coming on the show. Chris, you and I have talked about it. And it's going to deal exclusively with recruiting. So we're going to give you guys a recap of how we think our schools did around the state. We'll actually have a really good in-depth analysis of what goes into the recruiting process, what the players go through, what the parents go through, what the coaches look for, etc. So we're going to have a full recap for you coming up soon. So make sure you're subscribed to our show so you can get that update as soon as it's out.
Yeah.
All right. So, any last thoughts today, Chris? People have their own opinions on how the bowl games went. How can they reach out to us, and how can they give us that feedback?
Oh, yes. Some changes. We've, in the past, given you this long list of things and outlets to reach us, but I'm going to simplify it for you. All you got to do is go to FloridaFocusPodcast.com.
Whoa.
Yes. You go right there, click on there, and then you have all these outlets: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, whatever you want. It's at your fingertips. But all you do is there's one central hub, and that is FloridaFocusPodcast.com.
Oh, that sounds like it's different. Did it change?
New year, new us.
Oh, hey, okay.
Yes.
FloridaFocusPodcast.com. That sounds really awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we got that taken care of. That's it's really good. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you to all the fans that listen to the show and have found us. To our new listeners on Google Play Music, thank you for joining us and giving us the immediate attention and feedback and downloads right away. So thank you to everyone else, however you find us. If you have a minute, we would really appreciate some feedback. Give us a rating, an honest rating. We love the 5-star, of course. Leave us a review. Take 1 or 2 sentences just to tell us how we're doing. And always reach out to us any way you want so we can make the show better.
All right. And just want to say, sorry there has been a delay between the end of the season and our last podcast and today. That is my fault. Actually, me and my wife's fault. We were busy celebrating the birth of our second child.
Hey.
Yeah, I know. So thank you for your patience. But we're going to get back into this thing, hopefully. Assuming that I can sleep.
Right.
That's not a thing right now. So assuming that our child figures out how a sleeping pattern and I can get into that sleeping pattern with them, and we'll be doing more consistent shows. But I thank you for your patience.
Yeah, and I mean that's obviously a great thing to celebrate, and
Yeah.
it came at the right time of year where the season had ended itself, and we'll get back into some of our Fave 5 list, and we'll give you some updates as time allows, but you can expect more regular stuff as more events come up. So
Right.
Yes, I completely agree. So congratulations, Chris. It's awesome.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So you shared a little bit of your personal life, so I'm going to do the same. As soon as this episode ends, I will have a special message because during the off season, I celebrate a birthday.
Again?
Yeah, turns out.
Wow. How many are you going to have?
Well, we'll keep that number under wraps for now.
Okay.
Age myself. our regular listeners will know they have a pretty good idea of how old we are, but we'll let it remain a mystery.
Yes.
But I will actually include a special message from probably the most biggest fan of all. So
okay,
to her in advance. But anyway, any last thoughts before we sign off for the night, Chris?
No, I'm excited to get going at this again.
All right.
It's fun. It's fun talking college football with you.
Yes, and it's one of the biggest joys that we get of the week. So thank you so much for listening. 5-star rating on iTunes. That's all from us.
That's right. Go Gators.
Go Seminoles.
Good morning, Brandon. I should be singing this to you at around 6:18 a.m., but this is as close as I'm going to get. So I'd like to say happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brandon. Happy birthday to you. I hope you have a great day, son. I wish I could be there to give you a nice big hug. But I will see you when I can, and it's going to be a great time when I see you again. I love you so very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Happy birthday, buddy. Bye.